Remember, and this is very important, your spouse is not responsible for your happiness. I'm going to say that again. I liked hearing it. Your spouse is not responsible for your happiness. You're responsible for your happiness. That is something you ultimately got to decide for yourself. If you allow yourself to let other people rob you of your joy or steal your joy, that's on you. That's not on them. Now, I'll say this. I want to live in such a way that brings Luella happiness, that's for sure. But I could do things that would make her happy and she still choose to not be happy. You know what I mean? You want to live in such a way that you bring happiness to your spouse. But more importantly, you are responsible for your own happiness. And if you find yourself not being happy, start asking the question, what is it about me that won't allow myself to be happy? Are there unmet expectations or unmet needs in your life? Is there things you expect your spouse to do that they're not doing, and so you're resentful because they're not doing what you want them to do? Guilty. That was my emotional child state way back when. You decide whether you stay happy and joyful. No one else does. You can find contentment in the midst of crisis. That's a possibility. But ultimately, remember, you're responsible for your happiness. But I would also argue, if you know what makes your spouse happy, why not do that for them? Why would you want to do things that bring misery to your spouse, right? You are responsible for your happiness. Your spouse is responsible for their happiness, all right? Number 4, and this one is a big one. So if you're taking notes, listen, write it down in big letters, all capitals, right? Forgive. Release resentment. Release bitterness. Release those things. Forgive. You are in need of forgiveness, and that which you freely receive, freely give. Who are we to not forgive when we are in need of forgiveness? When we hang on to resentment and bitterness, we already know psychologically what it does to the individual. Over time, it increases depression, it increases anxiety, it can lead to addictions, and it doesn't build a marriage. It actually destroys relationships, any relationship. Forgiveness actually can get rid of depression, it can get rid of some anxiety problems, but most importantly, it can restore intimacy. It allows you to reconnect. By forgiving, you're actually saying, you know what? You're not perfect and neither am I. And I don't want to hang on to this negativity, and I want to release it because I love you. Forgiveness is a very powerful act of grace. Did you get that? It's a wonderful act of grace that you give to others. I learned about forgiveness myself many years ago. It's actually a core of the Relate Well curriculum. Chapter 4 of Relate Well, our program, is designed. That chapter 4, it's one of the chapters of goodwill. You see, in Relate Well, we talk about 4 principles to live your life by as a way of being: goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. And I call them the 4 protectors of an us, because when I choose to live my life by goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy, then I'm always protecting my relationships, all my relationships. It really is ill will to not forgive. Because if you can forgiveness is basically you owe me, so I'm going to pay you back. It's like throwing a stone at someone. You understand, every time you can throw a stone at somebody, people can stone you for things you've done to them. You know, we all hurt people. We all make mistakes. We all make choices we regret. Ask for forgiveness if you need to be repentant, but forgive as well. And by the way, this is very key. You can forgive whether that person's repentant or not. I forgave my dad 5 years after he died. I let it go. Forgive, release resentment, release those things. Why? Love yourself enough to not hang on to that. Forgiveness doesn't restore a relation, but I do know this. It will block you from healing from whatever happened. But forgiveness does open the doorway. Listen to how I word this now. It opens the doorway for the possibility of restoration of a relationship. So forgive, folks. Now, this one I believe in very strongly. And so I'm going to say it. It's number 5 here. Begin a habit of being grateful and appreciative. Begin a habit of being grateful and appreciative. We all need to hear what's good about us. We all need to hear the things that we do well. We all need to hear, what it is that we do that blesses other people. We all need to hear those things. I need to hear them. Is there anything that I do that you appreciate, Luella? Is there anything that I do that you're grateful for? Early in our marriage, I said to her, I started traveling at that time, and I was speaking around the country. And I finally said to her one day, I was home, I said, do I do anything that you appreciate? She says, yes. I go, well, I need to hear it, because I know everything I do that you don't like, but I don't hear anything that you do like. I don't know if I look good to you. I don't, because she doesn't tell me. She didn't tell me. But I was hearing it out there in public. And let me tell you something. Whenever you share an appreciation or gratitude to someone, listen up. This is very important. When you share an appreciation or gratitude to someone, when that person hears it, their brain releases a neurochemical called dopamine. Dopamine, say it with me, dopamine. Dopamine, when released, is a neurochemical that creates a mood shift into pleasure. It's like your brain goes, yeah. I want my dopamine shots for my wife. I appreciate that I get it out there in public, but in the end, I really want it from her. I want it from my kids. I want it from others as well, but I really want it from Llewellyn. If you don't give your spouse gratitudes and appreciations, someone else could, and they'll be getting dopamine from them. You understand that whenever your brain, wherever it's getting dopamine from, the dopamine says, I want more of that from that person. You can see the possibility of adultery could show up. Didn't say it will, but it's a possibility. Why? Because that person is grateful for me. That person appreciates me. I go home and you don't. I know everything you don't like about me. I know everything that I do wrong. Be grateful. Be appreciative. You can find things to always appreciate every day. I believe that strongly. You can always find something to appreciate. And there's something powerful when we live our life of gratitude and appreciations. You know, people who live this way as a way of being tend to not be depressed. They tend to not have psychiatric problems. They tend to be honest with themselves and their relationships. And they tend to live in the present. Do you get that? They tend to live fully in the present, because in order to be great, live a life of great gratitude and appreciation requires you to be present, to notice, to be aware of. Number 6, practice patience and kindness. Practice patience and kindness. They call it the love chapter in the Bible. Love is patient, love is kind. And there's like 13 more traits listed there. If you actually take the other 13 traits and really look at them, they're actually variations of 2 things, patience and kindness. No wonder they're listed first. And then the other 13 are just variations of patience and kindness. What if you began to be patient with your spouse? What if you weren't so reactive? What if you weren't so harumph? What if you didn't get anxious and you learned to just live in the moment, to be patient? Now, I'm going to tell you something. That was something I had to learn. Patience is a skill you develop. It's an emotional skill for sure, but it's a skill you develop, you see. And if you really want to learn patience, well, I tell you what I always joke around, tell people, go to Walmart, 25 checkout lines, and they only got one open. That's a great place to practice patience. Traffic. I mean, think about it. You're driving down the road and someone cuts you off and you start to speed up and stare at them. You know how unkind that is? You see, you got to practice kindness as well. When you're in traffic, be patient. Just be patient. It's not like that traffic jam was there just to mess up your life. It's almost like when we're impatient, it's almost like we're saying, oh, these thousands of cars did this just to get at me. No, that didn't happen. You just happened to come along when there is a traffic jam. Practice patience. When you practice patience, you find yourself in peace. You don't let external things dictate how you want to be as a way of being. And always practice kindness. Always practice kindness. How do you want to be treated when you mess up? Always be kind and look for ways to be kind. Give a smile to someone. Maybe you pay for someone's meal that's behind you in the drive-thru. I've done that before. Or maybe if you're standing in line at a restaurant, a fast food restaurant, person behind you is by themselves. Why don't you just pay for their meal? Say, come on up here. I feel like I want to bless you today. What? Yeah, I want to bless you. Come on, get up here and order your meal. I'm buying. I've done that before. You bless people when you're kind to them. But you know what kindness really does? Kindness really says you matter. You have value. You have worth. When you're unkind to people, you say to them, you don't matter. You have value. You don't have worth. All based on whether you're kind or not kind. Be kind to your spouse. You married them. Why would you be unkind to the person you say you love? If you live a life of unkindness to your spouse, you're basically saying, I don't value them. I don't want you. And take what I'm about to say with goodwill, folks. I find it very disingenuous when you treat someone on a regular basis in an unkind way, in a way that devalues them, and they walk out of your life and you're bothered by that. I would go, why would you be bothered by that? Well, they're leaving me. I go, no, I got that. I'm asking why you're bothered by the fact they're leaving you. Well, they're leaving me. I go, but that doesn't make sense. You've treated them on a regular basis for many years in an unkind way. You sent the message you don't value them. You should be rejoicing that they're leaving you. I find that very disingenuous. You treat someone in a way that devalues them and then you're bothered when they leave. That don't make sense. You want people to stick around? Be appreciative, be grateful, be patient, and be kind on a regular basis. All right, you ready? Number 7, practice good self-care. That's not just about getting a bath, taking care of your underarms, etc., etc. That's a piece of it, let's be honest. But you know what it's really about? Physical self-care, but it's also about emotional self-care, intellectual self-care, and spiritual self-care. If you know that you have emotional struggles, resolve them. If you know you have an addiction, work on it and fix it. If you got an anger problem, get it solved. Good self-care is what mature adults do. All right? I'm going to be open with you here. I think I do good self-care in a lot of areas. I don't do it as well in the physical side. Never been an athlete. Don't want to be an athlete. Never really worked out. Never did any of that, right? I was more of an academic guy. Yeah, I was in the military 12 years, so I did it there, all right? But folks, you're not going to see me sweating it out in a gym somewhere. That's not who I am. But I can do some level of self-care physically, and you can take care of yourself emotionally. You can take care of yourself intellectually. Read, learn, grow. Don't stop learning. Develop your mind. Develop into an emotionally intelligent and emotionally mature person. Practice good self-care.